Hey guys, what's up? Itchla. Welcoming you back to another episode of Car Rides Witchla. And today, I was feeling a bit interesting, I suppose. Interesting is the right way to describe it. I have been given this feeling of peace and tranquility. And that's not very usual for me. I think for a long time, I was always feeling a bit restrained, feeling a bit like I had things to say and they couldn't come out. And I just think doing the show has just been so therapeutic. It has given me an outlet that I've needed for so long now. And it really has gotten to the point where there's not an awful lot for me to get into or talk about. I did mention, it may have been yesterday's night shift, about I ordered the Bumblebee, which is a very good plosive filter for the microphone. It should be very good for the specific environment I'm in, which is a car where you have a lot of noise going on, and also to sort of buffer the mic a little bit, because this mic seems a bit hot to me. The gain seems kind of high. I was actually having issues with the mic when we first started the recording. I'm not now, but that was a little strange to me. I'm not really sure how I feel about that. I just had to plug it in and out a couple times and we got it working. But I hope all is well, because we do not have the ultimate backup yet. So I'm hoping that at least the microphone will be good until we get the ultimate backup, which the ultimate backup will be the new stand that will be able to hold my phone facing me from the back, and the microphone quality from the phone should get improved from that, essentially, because it has the better mic array for the rear shooter, as opposed to the front shooter. It just uses a worse quality mic for front oriented content. Today, I had an urge to get political, and I think I'm going to follow through with that. I was mentioning in the morning shift, today's morning shift, that it hasn't really been deep. It hasn't really been serious. And I'm wondering, and I'm going to put this to note, I really should listen to these because I make a lot of mental notes for myself. And then I know I did that in previous episodes, but I don't remember them now. So I definitely do need to listen to these. I was noticing a lack of depth. And again, this feeling of tranquility, calmness, goodness. And I'm wondering if maybe it doesn't have to be so deep. Maybe I can just talk about politics and just get into stuff that isn't really, I don't know, necessarily upsetting or too surprising or anything. But I wanted to talk about the Republican rhetoric over time, because I noticed this right away. I've been listening to some of the older presidential debates. So 1996, Bob Dole versus Bill Clinton. 2000, George W. Bush versus Al Gore. And then I'm familiar with Obama versus Romney, as well as Trump versus Clinton and the rest of them, because I've been around for all that. The thing I noticed, though, is obviously the speaking and the rhetoric was incredibly different in the 90s and the 2000s. Just totally not Trump at all. And if you ran somebody like Trump back then, obviously it just wouldn't even work. Wouldn't even work at all. Like, nobody would have wanted that or liked that. It would have just been like totally crazy. And that's what I think is so interesting. It's so interesting to see the change in culture and whatnot. And how there was a candidate who nowadays has won 2 presidencies, where back then they would have just totally never had a shot. That's not really the interesting thing, though. The interesting thing I noticed is that the policy is the same. The policies of Bob Dole from 1996, from George W. Bush in the 2000s, and Trump is all basically very similar in terms of how they present their policies on the debate stage. Now, the rhetoric is different in terms of how they say things, and the words they use is absolutely different. Obviously, Trump is very aggressive and really, loud and just doing his own thing, whereas Dole and Bush, much more reserved, much more calm, composed, I suppose. But the policy seems like the same stuff. It really seems like the same attitude towards diminishing the federal government, focusing more on the states, the privatization of more things, more programs and stuff. And it's just very interesting to me because a lot of people obviously gravitate to Trump who maybe did not gravitate to these other people. And Trump himself even poses himself as being somebody who's distinctly different, especially from his predecessors, which is a bit rare, at least from what we've seen in American politics, recently. Usually there's some kind of lineage with parties. I think Obama was probably on pretty good terms with Clinton, and, Hillary was obviously on pretty good terms with Obama. I don't think with Democrats there had really been too huge of a departure, to my knowledge. With Republicans, I think it was similar, although there may have been somewhat of a departure for people like Nixon, right, because of the scandal that he was involved in or things like that. But it was kind of just a lineage more so. Well, you even see, obvious example I'm talking about, H.W. Bush and then W. Bush runs. There was always these lineages within parties, and Trump obviously shattered that and really made that his brand, that he was a different Republican. But the thing is, I just don't really see how his policies are that different. I think it's all just the same kind of policies as just regular Republican. It doesn't seem overly different to me. I don't know. Just in my listening of it, this is just my initial thoughts. I specifically notice the thing about Hollywood liberals and just talking about liberal elitism and these concepts. I noticed that, and obviously Trump has the same rhetoric. It's not any different. Trump talks about the same things, so I'm not really sure. It's not really that different. I mean, calling it fake news and acting as if there's a news apparatus against conservatives, I think that is maybe grabbing it by the throat more. But I think the same concept of conservatives playing the victim has been prevalent, again, since at least the 90s. I'm not entirely sure. It could extend past further than this, but this is just my very brief venture into listening to these debates. And I just think it's very interesting. I don't know. It's interesting to me as somebody who, I think when I was younger, I also thought that Trump was very different But now that I have more of the historical, like, seeing it, I just don't really believe that. I don't know how different he is. And now, even on social issues, because that was going to be the one thing I ceded ground with, is because obviously Trump amped up the cultural or social issues. But the thing is, I had just heard, because I was just watching the second Dole versus Clinton debate, Dole also referenced illegal immigrants using welfare, which is obviously a huge point of Trump's that Trump has said over and over again. And I'm wondering if that's just been a Republican talking point. I don't know if that's really new with Trump. Now, I don't know if people look at Dole and judge his character on that, because Dole's brand was not making immigration this huge issue. But it was there. He said it. It came out of his mouth. So it's not like a new policy or a new concept. But I just think it's very interesting. I do. I think watching the debates, which, if you're curious as to why I'm watching them, I do like politics, but I also am interested in listening to speeches and just seeing how people talk. And the reason why I like debates so much is because, as far as we know, they're not scripted. So there's a lot more skill in that in terms of being on the spot. And that's always the thing I'm into, is stuff that is not scripted, on the spot. It's obviously the skill that that comes most naturally to me and that I'm most trying to cultivate. So it's very interesting to me to watch these debates and learn a bit about our history and just have a bit more context to what's going on now. So I think I'll continue to watch more of them and have more of a dialogue about that. But again, already I have noticed a very similar connection between all of them, whereas I would have thought there was more of a difference based on the way people act. I really would have thought there was more of a difference, but it doesn't really seem like it to me. I don't know. And yeah, that's my synopsis so far. I will continue to dig into this, watch more debates, I'm sure. Just because that's, I'm trying to soak in this stuff. I'm trying to soak in rhetoric and try to find my voice and how I want to come across, things like that. Now, the thing I wanted to talk about that was more controversial is I think you guys have noticed a trend that I'm not very libertarian in thinking. I used to actually be, ironically, when I was a teenager, but then again, I feel like anybody who is politically aware as a teenager is going to go through a libertarian phase because you're a teenager. But I just don't think that I'm, like, the whole small government thing, I don't think it makes a lot of sense to me. The specific example is when it comes to the soda tax. Now, I don't know, it's a very, unpopular position. A lot of people don't like it. It always just made a lot of sense to me, though. It just did. Ever since I heard about the concept, I just thought it made sense. You should tax unhealthy food because it really shouldn't even be that accessible to begin with. It's not helpful for people. Now, I'm going to try to elaborate on the concept because I think it's hard for people to wrap their heads around. But it's not that I don't want to have fun or I don't value freedom, because I do think both fun and freedom are very important things. It's just that there's no reason to have things in the environment, and in this case, in a society, that are just not helpful. There's no reason to have that. And some guys like honking on me really loud, and he was looking at me shrugging and stuff. I'm not really sure what his point was. Like, he was like throwing his hands up and just like really confused. But guess what? We're going into a traffic jam. So I'm not really sure what the rush is. He's not far ahead of me right now. He's just to the next car. Anyways, within an environment, your happiness meter is going to be adjusted based on the stimulus it's given. So let's say somebody is in an environment like a city and they have access to hard drugs. They're going to use them, and then it's going to make them happy temporarily, but then their overall happiness has obviously declined substantially, right? Because now they're addicted to a drug. And the only reason why they even tried that drug is because of the environment that they're in. Now, that drug is really fun. It's really exciting, exhilarating even, but it's really destructive. And so there's no reason why an environment should exist, or drugs like that are just able to exist. Like, there should be some kind of control done to prevent that. On a smaller scale, you have things like, let's say you grow up in a household where you always have cookies available. There's always chocolate chip cookies in the kitchen. They're just lying out. You're probably going to end up eating them. You're going to be much more likely to just get used to them and eat them. And that's inevitably not good, because we know that the amount of damage that sugar does, it's just not even worth it to eat. Now, I'm saying that, of course, I still do occasionally eat sugar. I don't eat sugar most of the time, though. I think most days of the week I am not eating any sugar. But we know it's not worth it. Now, the counter argument to this is then, obviously, if you grow up in a house where things are too strict, then when you get older, you end up craving these things. So there's also that angle to look at. And I'm just getting ready to lust because there's a Land Rover Defender about to pass me. But it's not the one I like, the two-door. The Defender 90 is the one I really have my sights set on. Anyways, there is that counter-argument to that, and I guess the truth has to be somewhere in the middle. So maybe I'm not as staunch about it as I thought, because, you know, if it does get too extreme, it can be a problem. But the main premise is that there are, if you look at tribes and whatnot, not many mental health issues, not many problems that we face in developed society, and it has to do with environmental. Nowadays, you have so much intense freedom, and through the internet, you can find so fast, like, the funniest videos or the most stimulating, entertaining content very quickly. And it just spoils you at such a high level that there's really no reward, or it just becomes insane. And that's kind of the point I'm getting at. I think there is a necessity to have some rules in place, and maybe we can't start just outright banning a bunch of stuff, but I think things could be regulated a lot better than they are now, because really, for the time being, there's not really any rules or anything. The internet is just, you do whatever you want, and that's it. I don't know. There's not really a lot of people enforcing anything. Now, the important thing with this is, of course, good rules are important. If you have bad rules, that is very bad. That is actually, sometimes bad rules are worse than no rules at all. I would say that's a pretty accurate, but I'm saying sometimes, because that sometimes it is good to have structure. Another person, I mean, I don't know if they're honking at me or who they're honking at, but I don't really get it. I don't understand how these people's brains work. But again, then again, they probably don't know how my brain works. But I think there's a balance, and I think that society is not in a balance right now. I think it's very libertarian and very much you just do whatever comes your way. Whatever shows up on your screen is okay. And there's no way that that's good. So I think that's kind of why I try to overcompensate by advocating for rules and for structure and for these things, because it's really what this moment needs. This moment does not really need somebody to come across like, yeah, do whatever you want, live your life. Because in this day and age, and with the tasks that we are going to have ahead, that's just not it. It's not going to cause us to survive. I don't know how deep I'm going to get into this, but I guess I don't really think it should. Well, no, it actually is kind of controversial nowadays, because even though I guess my position is somewhat in the middle, meaning there does need to be some rules and regulations, but not too many. I think a lot of people just don't or can't appreciate that, because at this point we're way too addicted to the overabundance of freedom, and it's very difficult to roll things back once they have been let loose. The thing I was thinking about today, and I wanted to mention to you guys, I think a couple weeks ago I saw this all blacked out brand new Range Rover, and I immediately just fell in love with it. I had seen the new Range Rovers before, and they look pretty interesting. It's a little more minimal than the previous iteration, but it definitely caught my eye. I like it. But I was walking during my break, and I saw it was all blacked out. And there was a lot of lust going on. There was a lot of staring. And I haven't really been able to get it out of my mind since. And I kind of realized then that I really want a blacked out Land Rover Range Rover. And not the Sport, because the Sport, I don't really know how I feel about the design. I need the full-blown, blacked out Land Rover Range Rover. It is such a gorgeous car to me. And I would love for that to be my whip right now. So if you guys want to get together and do a Kickstarter or a GoFundMe, I don't know that I'm rich enough yet to even afford the insurance and stuff that would come with that. Right. So maybe not yet, guys, but soon. And I just can't. I mean, it is such a pretty car. It is such a beautiful car. And I don't know. I'm very interested in it. Now, the other Land Rover that I like, I actually mentioned not too long ago, is the Defender 90, which is a two-door Land Rover Defender. Now, I don't know if I like the aesthetic or the vibe quite as much, but I definitely do like it a lot. It's just very different. It is a very different look, but the main thing that I like about it, and something I'm remembering I had mentioned, I actually remember where I was in the road. So it was sort of towards the end of an episode I want to say it was episode 5, but I don't know, because episode 5 I was talking about a lot of other crazy stuff. I'm not sure that it's episode 5, but it was towards the end. It was probably about 8 to 10 minutes towards the end. I briefly said something about two-door cars being the best, and that is a firm opinion of mine. So when I see these kind of odd SUVs, like the Land Rover Defender two-door, I really like it a lot. It's so appealing to me. I just don't know that I like the design enough. I mean, it is a very good design, but I still like the way the regular Range Rover looks more than the Defender. But I see the appeal. Obviously, the Bronco, they make a two-door of that as well. I really like that. Although, again, I'm not really a Bronco kind of person. I definitely would have to go for the Land Rover. That's just me. I think I've always liked Land Rovers. The first time I really took note of one is there was a Land Rover Evoque that was parked next to the hairdresser that my mom took me to when I was a child. And I definitely took note of it, and I was definitely asking her about it. Because at the time I was really young and I didn't know much about cars. So I really was locked in. And the Evoque, they made a two-door of as well that I really like. So, yeah, I've always been a fan of Land Rover. I don't know. It's just always been on my radar. And the interesting thing is my main favorite car brand is Mini, and they're also British. And of course, that's just kind of random, but it's obviously not completely random because there's some kind of aesthetic, at least a spiritual connection with why would like my two favorite brands be both British just coincidentally. There's probably something more to that. But I really do like Mini, obviously the two-door. Another example of a car when I was a child, there was one on my street, and I would ask my mom about it. Yeah, very, very odd child, right, already into cars, and that's only gotten worse as I've gotten older. When I drive, I'm always like looking and identifying cars. When I'm walking and I see cars, I just habitually lust after cars. I think Land Rover, I just like them because of it is like the different brand. There's obviously Mercedes and BMW, and they're just like the more standard brands. Well, the standard high end, but Land Rover is definitely not the standard high end. They're like the more oddball one, and they're also not really as good cars. Like a Land Rover is absolutely form over function. I don't really think they're great cars. It's just the look and the vibe. And it's interesting how conflicted I am about that because I am like fairly smart and practical, but at the same time, I really fall for looks. Like looks and how stuff is designed is so important to me. And I think that's really interesting because there's a huge conflict. There's like one side of me that is like really just wants the most reliable car. And then there's another side of me where all I care about is just looks alone. It's like shallow and there's nothing else to it. But I think maybe what I'm feeling with that is that there is a depth and a value to the way things are designed and looked at as well. And that can be a deep thing. It's not just shallow. I know that might be a hard concept for me to explain, especially like right now in the car, but that's probably a good idea for a video. Because I think that's probably something I may be supposed to articulate, that there really is a depth to the way things look. It's not inherently shallow to be interested in something just for the sake of looks. But yeah, it's definitely a conflicting perspective of mine, because I'm aware of the serious issues with brands like that. I mean, brands like that, it's not good for the environment. They're making a car that is bad on purpose, and then they have that allure of status, and then parts break, and then it's super expensive to fix. So it's very wasteful, because you're purposely designing a car and your scheme is to get money out of it from it breaking. You're not designing a car to actually last and be good, which would obviously be way better for the environment. So that's the interesting thing, is I am very aware of that. And I think a lot of people who are into Land Rover are not. They're probably people that just seek it for the status of it. I'm sure that's really the case. I don't think many people purchase cars with as much spiritual intent as me, or depth. And I think that's something I'm going to try to create a marriage of. You know, a marriage between understanding that looks don't have to be shallow. They don't. And there is something, at least for me, that is deeply fulfilling about it. And I just think it suits me. And I'm not just buying it for status or like a blind purchase. Like, I'm aware of the shortcomings of it. Again, I'm just about certain that a BMW or a Mercedes or an Audi would drive better than a Land Rover. But a Land Rover is that artistic in and of itself, that it is a car where the entire budget is put on the design, and everything else about it's a piece of junk. And I don't know why that's appealing to me, because overall I'm an optimizer and I want things to be the best. But again, the older I'm getting, I'm realizing just how shallow I can be in terms of, again, really the looks of something holding precedent. I don't know. So someday, once my podcasting takes off, that's probably going to be a big purchase of mine, is a Land Rover. And I'm not sure which one. I haven't really decided yet, because it could be that two-door blacked out Defender, or I may go with the all blacked out, just regular Land Rover Range Rover. And then, of course, as my little car, it's going to be a two-door Mini Cooper. I'm not sure entirely what color I'm going to get for it. Chili red was always my go-to for minis, but at this point, I'm feeling, again, like a change with that. So I feel drawn more to blue. I was just looking. They have a pretty nice blue. I don't remember exactly what it was called. Icy mountain blue or icy ocean blue or something like that. Kind of liked that. But either that or chili red, probably in the Mini. I don't know that I want a blacked out Mini, because I'm already going to have a blacked out Land Rover. Although, now that you mention it, that would look very in sync. Or like a whited out Mini and a black Land Rover. Like, I don't know, but actually the double black, I didn't even think about that, how much in sync that would look. But the Mini, I'm not sure about the color, but to me, that's the dream garage. I don't really think I need anything else. I just want my SUV for SUV things, and then my regular driver is going to be the Mini. Obviously, the Mini is just the best car, really, for, you know, trips to the food store or just anything. It is just the best car at transporting, as long as it's just you or one other person. There is no better car. It is impeccably designed, and I love it. But of course, I also want to have my SUV, because I have a lot of stuff, and I want to be able to have a car that I can fit everything into. I wouldn't be able to fit everything into the Mini. So yeah, that's my dream garage. I don't think I need more cars than that. I think just 2 cars is fine. I don't know. I don't really think I need more than 2 cars. I think that's about it. And I think I'm okay with that. I don't know. There's obviously other cars that I'm into, but in terms of, again, there's no other car other than that blacked out Land Rover Range Rover that has stuck in my mind in that way. I do actually like BMW's latest 7 Series. I know that's probably a controversial take, but I like that sedan a lot. I think it probably, if I had to pick a sedan, it would probably be the BMW 7 Series. And I know some people may argue with that because the design is a little strange looking, but I always liked it. It always caught my eye. So I think for sedans, that's probably my favorite sedan. The Porsche Panamera is obviously a pretty nice sedan, although Porsche does not really speak to me that much. I don't know why. I mean, they're pretty cool, but it doesn't speak to me a lot. But they're nice. Like I like them a fair bit. Now, besides that, I don't know what other. Oh, obviously the Cadillac Escalade. I really do like the Escalade. I think it's a classic. And Cadillac's new electric car, which could be the Lyric, although I might be getting that mixed up with their super fancy, expensive electric sedan. But the electric Cadillac, I like a lot. I've seen it. It's very striking to me. So I suppose those are my favorite brands. Mini, Land Rover. I guess we can say BMW and Cadillac, but obviously Mini and Land Rover are above BMW and Cadillac. And I feel like that's pretty accurate. I'm not a huge fan of Audi. Their design just doesn't stand out to me that much. And I like Mercedes, but again, I mean, they're not up there. They're not that high up there. I don't know. Not that they're bad. I definitely think some Mercedes designs are good, but I don't think, again, it doesn't really speak to me too much. I think that's a good consensus. Of the super luxury brands, I've always liked Bentley the most. And that, again, is another strange coincidence, although I don't think it's that strange. Like, between Rolls-Royce or Bentley, I always liked Bentley more. I don't know why. There's probably other super luxurious brands, but I just don't. They're not coming to my mind at the moment. But of all, like, the super duper luxury, Bentley has always been my favorite. So for some reason, I like British design, apparently. Oh, also, I could include Jaguar, too. I do like their SUV. I think it's very good looking to me. So we could probably put Jaguar on the list. I think so. It's a bit of an odd choice, but I like them. I also like Alfa Romeo. I think that probably rounds out, like, my favorite brands in terms of, like, dream brands. Now, again, I really feel like the two main things is I just want my Mini Cooper and my Land Rover. The other ones are not super important. I don't know. They're just not. I mean, they're there, though. They're definitely present. I do like a lot of Cadillacs. I forgot to mention I like the CTS Coupe. The latest one, I guess, that they did because they stopped doing it. Or it may have been one iteration before the latest that has, like, the back that comes up a lot. I like that so much. That's such a good-looking car. I honestly wish I wish I had that right now as my car. But it is what it is. My life will all make sense in a couple years. I'll have all these cars and everything will be good. It's just all going to happen. Crazy. But that's what it seems like right now with the rate and things are going, and I don't think I'm going to slow down anytime soon. So that's that, right? because I'm still making videos. I thought today I was running out of ideas, but I'm obviously not. It's just I have to figure out where I'm at. And it's new energy, it's new vibes to deal with, and I'm getting the hang of it. I'm definitely getting the hang of it. Anyways, it's time for a TLDR Witch Law, and today we talked about some Republican presidents and the way their ideologies have shifted, or more so the lack thereof shifted. We then got into things to do with regulations and how I think rules are important, which is very controversial in this day and age. But then we finished talking about some of my favorite cars and my favorite car brands. It was a very nice episode. I'm pretty proud of it, and you should be too. Anyways, schla out.